We begin today the Gemara on Daf Tesam with Beis, 4 lines from the bottom of the page where it says Verebi. The Gemara here is discussing the source of Kidushin Bia, and it brought two opinions here. There's what Rabbi Yochanan says, and then there's what Rebbe says. So Rabbi Yochanan said that you learn it out from a pasuk where it says Ba'ulas Baal. And Rebbe said you learn it out from the pasuk that it says regarding the Kidushin itself, Ki yikach ish isha u ba'ala. So according to Rebbe, that learns it out from the pasuk u ba'ala, the Gemara will now explain what does Rebbe do with this pasuk Ba'ulas Baal. Since that's not, according to him, the source for Kidushin Bia, so he has to be learning something else from that pasuk. Says the Gemara, Rebbe, hi Ba'ulas Baal, ma yavad. What does Rebbe learn out from this pasuk Ba'ulas Baal? And says the Gemara, hi mi bayale Baal, Isa, Ba'ula shaloi kedarka. Only the husband, if he has a relation with his wife, but not in the usual manner, and she physically is still a basula, but nevertheless she gets the status of a ba'ula, but that's only when the husband has a relation with her in this way. But anybody other than the husband that had a relation with her in an atypical way, he will not make her into a ba'ula through this. She still will retain her status as a basula. Regarding a few different halachas, it's important to know if she has the status of a basula or a ba'ula. Regarding the halacha of naira hamayrasa, someone was mizana with her. Only if she's a basula will you be chayiv skila. B'chlal b'negei to a kohen gadol could only marry a basula. There's different halachas to know what the status of this woman is. Is she a ba'ula or a basula? So Rabbi says when the pasuk says ba'ulas Baal, it's saying this extra pasuk that only the Baal, the husband, even if he had a relation with her shaloi kedarka, will she become a ba'ulas Baal. But anyone else that has a relation with her shaloi kedarka, she remains a basula. That's what the pasuk is teaching me. Frag the Gemara, that can't be the hezbollah for Rebbe's opinion. Umil islay le Rebbe hay svar. Does Rebbe hold of this halacha that we just said? Tanya, what we learned in the Braise, this Braise was quoted here before on the Amud. Bo allow yuda noshim. What happens if you have this naira hamayrasa? She's already an eshes ish, but her husband didn't have any relation with her yet. It's just after the Edison. And now 10 people came and had a relation with her, violated her. And after all of them, she's still a basula because they had a relation with her shaloi kedarka. So what's the halacha? Kulam beskila. They'll all be chayiv and skila because they all had a relation with a basula. There was someone that had a relation before him, but it was shaloi kedarka, and she remains a basula. But Rebbe says, no, my opinion is, Harishaim b'skila, the first one will be chayiv skila, but the kulam b'chenek, all the ones that follow are having a relation with a ba'ula. Which means that Rebbe holds, even when it comes to someone not the husband, if he has a relation with her, even shaloi kedarka, she becomes a ba'ula. So this can't be what Rebbe learns out from ba'ula's pal, that only the husband turns her into a ba'ula. Amar Rab Zeide, so Rab Zeide says, no, this chat could still be true because Maide, we're on Daf Yud, Rab Zeide says, Maide Rabbi le'inyin knas. Rabbi will agree that when it comes to the payment of knas, so knas, it also is over here, the knas is by Einis and by Mefated is the payment of knas. So over here, Rabbi is Maide the kulu mishalmi, that she's considered still to be a besula for all these 10 people, and they'll all have to pay the knas. Right, so when Rabbi said that once the first one was boil shaloi kedarka, so then all of the rest of them are not going to be chayiv skila anymore, that's regarding the chiyuv of the misa. Regarding that, Rabbi says that the rest of them are only chayiv the misa of chenek, which is a lower level of misa than skila. But regarding the payment of knas, for all 10, she's still considered to be a besula because, and that's what's learned from Ba'ula's Baal, that anyone other than the husband does not turn her into a Ba'ula. The Gemara explains this. Ma'ishna miktola. What's the reason to say that there's a difference from this? We have here the pasuk ba'ulas Baal that's saying that anyone other than the husband, she's still considered to be a basula. So they all pay the knas. So why, when it comes to the chi of misa, do we say that only the first one gets skila and the rest don't? And so the Gemara, Shani Hasam, when it comes to the chiyuv of Misa, there it's different. Because there's a separate pasuk for that to say that she's not anymore a basula. The Makra, the pasuk says, Umei Sa'ish Asha Shachav Imo, that is Levade. That the man that lay with her, that violated her, so he will be chayiv Misa. Now this pasuk, when it says here Levadoi, it's an extra pasuk. What's that pasuk talking about? It's talking about someone that was ma'anis, a girl, against her will. And over there the pasuk says that Vilanada leisasa dava. Rashi quotes the pasuk that for her she gets no punishment for this. Why? Because it was a neinus. Now, when the pasuk then says that only the man levadai, he's the one that gets the einish, why is the pasuk saying that? It's an extra pasuk. It's coming to teach me, according to Rebbe, levadai, that the man, even in the case where there was someone before him that was already boiled this girl, but it was shaloi kedarka, so he already turns her into a ba'ula. That man levadai, he makes her into a ba'ula, and the rest of them will only get the misa of chenek. So this is a limud regarding Misa in this pasuk that speaks about Misa, that over here we say that this man Levadai, his Be'ula, even Shaloi Kedarka, is considered to be a full Be'ila, and she becomes a Be'ula. But regarding the Knas, she's considered to be a Besula for anyone that came and violated her after this first one that was Boiler Shaloi Kedarka. Now, the Rabbanon that disagree with Rebbe, the Rabbanon say that she's still considered to be a Besula for all 10 men. So, what do they learn out from this Levadai? Says the Gemara, they learn out what it's brought in a different Braisa, like the Tanya. The Braisa says, that we learn out from the pasuk that says that both the man and the girl, they both are chayiv misa, shavim ke'echad. That's only if they are both shavim ke'echad, which means that the einish of misa here, in a case where if she did it beratzna, obviously, and they're both chayiv misa, but it's only if he's a gadol and she's a gedayla. So according to Divrei Rabbi Shia holds that in a case where the man is a gadol and she's a ketana, so not only is she potter because she's a ketana, but the man will also be potter because it says shneim. Shneim means they both have to be a gadol or gedayla. But Rabbi Yonis says no. The pasuk then says this pasuk levadai is an extra pasuk which teaches me that even if the man will be getting the chi of misa himself because she's a ketana, he'll still be chai of misa. So that's what the Rabbana learn out from this pasuk, like Rabbi Yonis's opinion. Okay, now the Gemara comes back to Rabbi Yechanan that was mentioned earlier in the Gemara. Right? Rabbi Yechanan was brought before in the Gemara, so he holds that from where do you learn out the Kidushin of Bia? It's learned from Bu'ula's Baal. So you can't learn out from Bu'ula's Baal this halacha that we just said, the Rebbe learns out of here regarding the halacha of Bu'ula Shaloi Kedarka, that the first husband makes her into a Bu'ula, the first man that is, does not make her into Bu'ula. Okay, what did Rebbe learn out? The Rebbe said the husband himself, Bu'ula's Baal says the husband himself makes her a Bu'ula even if it's Shaloi Kedarka. But someone else will not make her a bula if it's shaloi kedarka. Okay, that's what we just said over here. The Gemara explained. Now, according to Rabbi Yechanan, you can't learn that out from here because Rabbi Yechanan uses this pasuk Bu'ula's Baal for the Kidushin of Bia. That's what the Gemara said before on Daf Tes. So high svara minole. From where does Rabbi Yechanan know this svara that only the husband with a Bia shaloi kedarka makes her a bula? Because Rabbi Yechanan will tell you can learn it all from this one pasuk. Because imkei nichtav kra ba'ulas ish. The pasuk should have used the term ba'ulas ish. That's the more usual lashon that it would say. My ba'ulas baal. Why does it use the term baal? Baal means to teach me not only the whole Kidushin of Bia that the husband can be mekadesher with, but it also comes to shmami notarti. I can learn a second halacha that only a husband turns the wife into a ba'ula shaloi kedarka and not anyone else. And as the Gemara said, that's going to get to Knas, at least according to Rebbe's opinion. Okay, now the Gemara is going to discuss other details b'negeya to the Kidushin of Bia. The Shaila was asked regarding the Kidushin of Bia. Tchilas Bia kaina, Oisayf Bia kaina. Regarding Bia, which part of Bia is kaina? Is it the beginning of the Bia or the end of the Bia? Right, the first contact or the full Bia? That's the Shaila. So nafkemina, what's the difference over here, whether it's the beginning or the end? Kagoin sheheraba, if there was the beginning, the contact of the Bia, and then a pashta yada v'kibla kedusha macher, and the bia was never finished, and then she was makabel kedusha from a second individual. So the question is she mukadeshes to the second individual, and she needs a get from him, or not? If the bia of the first one man was kaina, so then the second kedusha that she was makabel is nothing. If the first one was not kaina, so then now she's going to be mukadeshes to the second man. Inami, another nafkamina is l'koyen gadol. Regarding a kohen gadol, the kakani besula bebia, that is being mekadesh a besula with bia. So what the Gemara is saying over here is a kohen gadol allowed to be mekadesh a wife with bia? If you're going to say Tchilas Bia Kaina, so then it's going to be mutter, because right at the beginning, that's the Kidushin, and he's Mekadesher, and he's being Mekadesher as a Besula. Again, the point here about the Kohen Gadol is that he's only allowed to marry a Besula. So if you're going to say the beginning of the Bia is Kaina, so he's being Mekadesher Besula. But if you're going to say that only the end of the Bia is Kaina, so then at the beginning of the Bia, she gets the status of a Ba'ula. And then the Kiddushin only takes effect at the Seif of the Bia, so now he's being Mekadesh or Ba'ula. So that would mean that a Kohen Gadol cannot be Mekadesh Isha through Bia. It's the second Afkamina. So what's the halacha? Amar Ameim Mishmei Derave, Kala Boyel, Daitoi Al Gemar Bia. A person that's Boyel, his das is, and the same is also regarding the das of the Isha, it's on the Gemar of the Bia that the Kiddushin should only take effect at the full Bia, and therefore that's when the Kiddushin takes effect. That's the Maskan of our Gemara. But here, there's a big discussion in many Rishonim, and Taisus brings this as well, that there's a Gemara in Yevamis that comes to the exact opposite conclusion, that the Tchilas Bia is what creates the Kidushin and not the Gemara of the Bia. There's many tirutzim to this. One of the tirutzim that the Rishonim say is, when our Gemara says that only the Gemara of the Bia is the Kidushin, that's if there was a Gemara Bia. But if there was no Gemar Bia, if there was only a Tchilas Bia, then I say that the Tchilas Bia is the Kiddushin. Our Gemara is saying, when you see that here the act is a full Gemar Bia, then you know that his das is on the Gemar Bia. But otherwise, the Kiddushin is really at the it could be right away at the Tchilas Bia. And that explains why the Gemara before, when it said, what's the nafkamina of this Ibaya, the Gemara should have just simply said, what do you mean, what's the nafkamina? The nafkamina is she Mukadeshes at the Tchilas Bia or not? The answer is, if there was only a Tchilas Bia, then she'll be Mukadeshes. Our Gemara's question was, if there was also a Seif Bia, so now the Shaila is going to be, what's with, in this case, will there be a Kedushin by the Tchilas Bia when there was also a Gemar Bia? Okay, so which would so the nafkamina before is a very interesting nafkamina. The Gemara is saying that when there's a tchilas bia and pashta yada v'kibla kedushin miacher means it was a tchilas bia, pashta yada, and then there was a gemar bia. So the question is, if pashta yada in between, whether she's mekadeshes to the second person or not. That's one of the pshatim here in Taisus in our Gemara.
What if there is a Kohen Gadol can't
yeah,
through beer?
Yeah, correct. Another shaila beneged to the Kidushin of Bia was asked. Bia, so the Kidushin of Bia. Nisuin Aisa or Edison Aisa. Does this bring the full marriage? In marriage there are two stages. The Edison, when she's a Eishes Ish, but she still lives by her father's house, and there's a many halachas of the kinyan of the husband does not yet apply, the Yerush and so on. The Gemara is going to bring over here. Or no, only Edison Aisa. It doesn't do both stages of marriage, only the Edison. So some Mefarshim say, and this is what it's mashma Shulchan Aruch also, that the shaila of the Gemara is when a person is doing the act of bia with the kavana l'shem nisuin. If he's specifically saying that this is not just a bia for the kiddushin, but it's also for the full marriage, should be husband and wife 100%. With that kavana, will this one act of bia create both together? But if he did the bia befedish only l'shem kiddushin, then there's no shaila b'chlal. Then it'll only be a bia l'shem kiddushin. But the question is, could bia be both together at once? That if you have that kavanah, that it should be side the edison and side the nisuin.
Do you need both?
Huh?
Do you need both?
Usually, the marriage of Eishes Ish is divided in two stages. And here the Gemara brings right away what the nafkamina in the two stages are. The nafkamina, if it's nisuin or edison is, and this is b'chlal the nafkamina between nisuin and edison, liyarsha, whether the husband will yarshin his wife. After Edison, a husband is not yarshin of his wife. If she passes away, all of her possessions don't go to the husband. Or the tamala, if the husband is a kayin, if it's only Edison, he can't be metamet to her. Or the hafrna darel, or could the husband nullify her vows by himself, without the father, along with the husband? If you're going to say that the bia over here, one act of bia is both together, Edison and Isuan, so then Yarsha, Metamala, Mefina Dara, he's fully married to her and he owns her 100% for all these details. But if you're going to say that this one act of bia, you can't have one bia do Edison and Isuan, so it's going to be only Edison, so Eina Yarsha, Eina Metamala, Eina Mefina Dara. He will not yet inherit her, he cannot be Metamala, and he can't nullify her vows alone. So, what's the halacha? Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, Toshima. The Braise here says, Ha'av, or maybe this is a Mishnah, we learned this in Sech Ksubis, Ha'av Zakai Bebitai. The father has the possession, the rights, the authority over his daughter, B'Kidusha, to be Mekabel or Kidushin, and that's B'Kesef, B'Shtar, and B'Biyah, regarding all three modes of Kidushin, as we learned this before on Daf Gimel in the Masechta. And v'zakai b'mitziyasa, and also the father has the authority over an item that the daughter finds, and also regarding her income, and to nullify her vows. We're talking over here about a daughter which is up to the age of a naida. And if she got married and now she's getting divorced, who gets the get? The father. So that's when it's after Edison. Taisus here discusses this. If it's after Nisuin, if she was already fully married to her husband, then she's out of the father's possession. But if she was only married the first stage of marriage and she's getting divorced, then the father gets the get. But a father will not get any properties that his daughter yarshened from some other place that did not come to the father. If she yarshened it from somehow from her mother's, some way that she got from a relative, a Yerusha, the father does not eat paytis from his daughter's properties. Now, in Nisis, when she gets married to her husband, the full stage of marriage, the Nisuin, so yes, at all of about, the husband has the authority over his wife more than the father, besides all the things mentioned before that the husband gets, that the husband is the one that eats the fruits, the produce of the properties that his wife brought into the marriage. So now what the Gemara says, what do we see here in the lashon of this brayse? Katani biyah. In the beginning of the brayse, it mentions biyah. All right, it mentioned three things: kesef, shtar, and biyah. And then afterwards, the katani nisis. And then afterwards, it says a different lashon. It uses the lashon of nisis, if the husband gets fully married to the wife. So it's mashma that biyah is not nisis. That's why it uses a different lashon. So from this I see that there's kesef, shtar, and biyah, and they only accomplish edison. But nisis is another thing. When he's fully married to her, there has to be a second biyah. He brings her into the house, chuppah. You don't even need a second biyah, but you need a chuppah. He brings her into yichud. So you see that biyah is not nisuin. Answers the Gemara, lav dafka. It's not a raya. Ki katani nisis. The expression that the brayse changes to the term of nisis, ashara. It's using that lashon nisis here in relation to the other two that were brought before, which is kesef and shtar. And kesef and shtar is definitely only edison. And then on that it says nisis, the term nisis regarding the husband that fully married her. Another raya the Gemara tries to bring Omar of Toshema. What's the minimum age for the Kidushin of Bia to take effect? That's a girl, but it's the age of 3 years old. If she's younger than 3 years old, then the Bia does not really have any effect. The Bia later, whatever it is, it comes back. She's not yet old enough that Bia should mean anything. And also, from the age of 3, if a Yavam has a relation with her, Kana, that by a Yavam, the only marriage of a Yavam, the Kinyan, by a Yavam is Bia. So that's the minimum age is 3 as well. And also v'chayav aleh mishum eishesish. And now through this bia she becomes an eishesish, and anyone that has a relation with her, it's an eish. She's already an eishesish. Umetame as bayala. Another halacha that by anida, the halacha by anida is a man that has a relation with anida. Besides the issa that he's over, he becomes now tame like his wife, and latame mishkav tachten kelyan. He will be able to be mitame anything that's below him, just like anything that's above. Meaning that a person that's a nida, that's tame, not only what she lies on becomes tame, but any layers below. It could be 10 layers, 10 mattresses, everything all the way to the bottom, all becomes tame if she's lying on it. The same thing with the husband. He becomes tame like her to be mitame what's tachten like Elyon. Yeah, the Rashi over here explains she's an avatome, he's not mamish, not mamish an avatome, but he becomes tame if he has a relation with his wife, a nida. So this is, when is she considered to be his wife? Only if there was a bia here, she was 3 years old already. And if she's getting married with bia, and now she got married to a kayin. Okay, so now what does the v'im nisis over here mean? V'im nisis is so Rashi says, is mashma. What the Bryce is saying is, before we were talking about the Kidushin of bia. And that the act of bia was just for the first stage of marriage, Kidushin. And now we're talking about nisis, meaning that he brought her into a chuppah. He brought her into his home, a yichud after the chuppah. So then echel is betruma. Then she'll be able to eat truma. But this is only if she's 3 years old. If she's not 3 years old, then this yichud of chuppah is worthless, because the whole yichud of chuppah is that he's miyuchud with her, and there could be bia. Less than 3, there's no yichud, and she can't eat truma. Any arayis of the Torah that come and have a relation with her, they're chayiv misa from this age of 3. And vihi patura, but obviously she's still at the age of 3. She's below bas mitzvah. She's not a naira, so she will be pater. From this age of 3, if any of the people that are apostle come and have a relation with her, all kinds of psulim that there may be, a zayna, a halala, or a nasan, or a mamza that come and have a relation with her. So pasla mina kohona. That relation with her will passel her now from getting married to kohona from the age of 3. So again, the Gemara says, Katani. What did it say here in the Braisa? The Braisa starts talking about Bia, the Bia of the Katana. And then a Katani, afterwards it says, Nisis, that if she got married fully, so then she'll be able to eat the Truma by the Kayin. So what do I see? The Bia that it spoke about before was just Kidushin. Nisis is after the Bia, which is the Chuppah. So you see that the Bia itself does not create both stages of the marriage. And so the Gemara, Hachi Kamar. This is the way you have to read the Braise. I hani nisuin, the Kayin inu. Even before, when it spoke about the Bia creates already the full nisuin. Elamai, up until this point, it wasn't talking about the nisuin of a Kayin. It was talking about the nisuin to any man. And then the Braise continues, V'im nisus le Kayin. If this Bia, which is nisuin, but here, if it is to a Kayin, then Eichelas betroma. Then she eats troma. So there's no raya from the lashon of this Braise either. The Gemara brings a third Braisa over here, and this Braisa will be focusing be'ikr on this halacha of a Bas Yisrael that marries a Kayin that now she gets rights to eat truma. So Toshima, Braisa here says the discussion that there was about this. Ukvar shalach Yechanan ben Bagbag etzel Rabbi Yehuda. Yechanan ben Bagbag sent to ask the question by Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida, that is, L'Nitzivan. He lived in the city of Nitzivan. Shamaiti alecha. So he asked him the following question, that I heard that they say about you, Sha'ata Aimer, that you say, Arusa, Bas Yisrael, that a Bas Yisrael, so she's only the first stage of marriage, Edison, to a Kayin, Eicheles betruma, and she could eat truma already. So he was asking him, is this true? You hold that an Arusa can eat truma? So we had this brought in the Gemara before on Daf Hey, and the Gemara here is going to discuss it more about Ichis. At what point could a girl, a Bas Yisrael that marries a Kayin, eat truma? After the first stage of marriage or the second stage of marriage? She says, I heard that you said that after the first stage of marriage she can eat truma. Shalach loy, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida answers back and sent a message telling him, you do not agree to me that a Bas Yisrael after Edison can eat truma when she's moreses to a Kayin? Muchzekani b'cha. I know about you, Shatabaki b'chadrei Teire, that you're proficient in all the rooms and chambers of Teire, lidrish b'kavachaymer, and you can dash on a kavachaymer. So you should know that you could learn out with a kavachaymer that an arusa Bas Yisrael married to a Kayin could eat truma. So iyat yedeya, don't you know that there's the following kavachaymer? Uma shivcha kananis. When it comes to a shivcha kananis, now shivcha kananis that's owned by a Kayin can also eat truma. Because the source of eating truma when you're owned by a Kayin is from the pasuk kinyan kaspai. If you're owned, so then you have the right to eat truma. So now when it comes to shivcha kananis, at what point could she eat truma when she's owned by a Kayin? She ain't biyasa machilasa betruma. She has no kinyan to her master through bia. That doesn't create any kinyan, so she won't be able to eat truma if her master has relations with her. But kaspa, machilasa betruma, when the master acquires her, how? In the proper way, which is through kesef, she'll be able to eat truma from her master. So zu, if so, when it comes to a Bas Yisrael that's marrying a Kayin, shebiyasa machilasa betruma, so the bia will be meichel her truma. So here, this is the key that the Gemara is going to focus on. Here in the Kavachayim, it's saying that it's a davar apashet, that bia is meichel truma. So ain't for sure we should say shakaspa machilasa betruma, that a man that marries a Kayin, that marries a Bas Yisrael, just with kesef, just the Kidushin alone, should be meicheler with truma. That's the Kavachayim. So here, let's just stop a second. There's the Hakadama for the Gemara Vayter. Why are we saying here in this Kavachayim that it's so pasha to say that when a man is mekadosh his wife with bia, that now she could eat truma? And from there, we're learning out that the same should apply if he's mekadosh her with kesef, that she could eat truma. Bia and kesef are just two modes of Kiddushin. They're the same thing. The only way to explain the difference is that the bia creates Kiddushin and nisuin, and the kesef creates only Kiddushin. So therefore, what he's saying is, if by Isha we see that bia, for sure she can eat truma because it's a full marriage, so then we could apply the same thing for Kiddushi kesef, that she'll be able to eat truma. So that's going to be the Gemara's raya to say that bia over here is the full nisuin. The Gemara is going to go through the details over here.
Kesef is a lower mode.
And a chanami, but we have this kavachayim from Amivriya. It's not just learning out kesef from bia. We're learning it out with a kavachayim from Amivriya. By Amivriya, there's no bia to be eating truma, and kesef works. So over here, where bia works and bia is nisuin, so for sure kesef should work. That's the kavachayim. Okay, so this is who's speaking of it, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida. And then Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseida adds, after he says this, Aval ma'aseh, this is minat Torah. But what should I do? Sharei amru chachamim, but the chachamim already said that there's a gzeira that ein arusa bas Yisrael lecheles betruma, and arusa bas Yisrael that marries a kohen cannot eat truma, achet tekanis lechuppah, until she enters into the chuppah, after full marriage. And we're going to see soon in the Gemara the reasons for this. There's two reasons for this. Okay, so now, but the Gemara wants to understand what's the pshat of the Kal V'chomer. Hey, chidami, what are we speaking about over here? When we have this Kal V'chomer, and again, the Brisa says that by bia it's poshut that she eats truma, and by kesef it's not so poshut. Why is that? Are we speaking about a bia that came already along with chuppah? There was a bia after chuppah, and the kesef shal yidei chuppah. And if so, when the Brisa in the Kal V'chomer mentions kesef, and we're trying to figure out if she eats truma through Kidushin kesef, and the Kidushin kesef is also with chopeh. So then, what's the Brisa even discussing? B'tarvayu meichel achla. If it is already a chopeh, so both by bia and kesef, she's fully married, the second stage of marriage, and for sure she eats truma. That can't be what the Brisa is talking about. Vela, you'll have to say that what is it talking about? B'bia sha'al yidei chopeh. When it mentioned bia, and it accepts the pashtus that bia you eat truma, because it's the bia together with chopeh, full marriage. And the kesef, and the reason why by kesef we're trying to figure out if she could or can't eat the truma, it's because it's the kesef shelo yaldei chuppah. It's just the Kidushin of kesef alone, just the edison without the second stage of marriage, without chuppah. Says the Gemara, but why are we learning out kesef without chuppah from bia with chuppah? Hoche tarti. By bia, there's both. There's the bia together with chuppah, it's full marriage. And v'hoche chada. And we're discussing kesef, which is just Kidushin. So that can't be the pshat here in the Brisa either. So el alav, don't you think the pshat of here is as follows? Bia shelo yidei chuppah. We're talking over here just about the act of bia alone as a Kiddushin, without any additional chuppah, and the kesef shelo yidei chuppah. And we're talking about the Kiddushin of kesef without anything else, just kesef without chuppah. So if so, if you're going to say that just the act of bia alone could accomplish both, it accomplishes the edison and the nisu and the full marriage. Mishum hachi pshitale. That's why here in the Kal V'chomer it was obvious that the alimale bia mikasef, that bia is stronger than kesef. That through bia to a kohen she can eat truma because she's fully married. But if you're going to say that bia accomplishes just the first stage of marriage, Kiddushin, just like kesef, so why regarding bia is the Brisa saying that for sure she could eat truma when she's getting married to a kohen, and why by kesef do we say that maybe yeah, maybe not? We have a doubt. We're trying to figure this out. So Bekitzer, we see here in the Brisa that by bia it's obvious that she's fully married to the kohen, and therefore she can eat truma. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, so the Gemara will give two answers to this. Rav Nachman by Yitzchak answers, no, that's not the pshat here. I can really tell you that the way this Kal V'chomer works is b'bia shal yidei chuppah. When it mentions bia here in this Kal V'chomer, it's speaking about bia that comes along with chuppah. So it's not just the bia alone. It is the bia as the first stage of marriage, and then the chuppah, which is the full marriage. And the kesef, and when it mentions kesef, it's kesef shelo yidei chuppah. There it's speaking about the kesef alone without chuppah. That your question was hachatarti. By bia, there's both. There's two things, and and by kesef there's only one. So how are we making such a Kal V'chomer? Says the Gemara, that's not a problem. Kal V'chomer mia isei, but the Kal V'chomer still stands. The Kal V'chomer, the source of the Kal V'chomer comes from Shivcha Kananis, and the Gemara spells out of here that the Kal V'chomer still stands. V'hachi shalachle, and this is the Kal V'chomer that Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira was saying. If when it comes to a kohen, a master that's acquiring a shivcha kananis, she'ein biyasa machilasa betruma, that if there was a bia between the master and this shivcha kananis, she will not eat truma. Afil al yedei chuppah, even if there was a bia with chuppah, even if there was both. But nevertheless, he's just trying to acquire her, and there's no Kidushin here. There's no concept of Kidushin when it comes to a Shivcha Kananis. She's not a Yid on this level that there could be a Bia or a Chuppah. So even with both, she will not eat Truma. Kaspa Machilasa, but nevertheless, just Kesef alone, acquiring it with money, she'll become Kinyan Kaspai and she could eat Truma. So that's even below Chuppah, even without any additional Chuppah. So Zu, when it comes to a wife, that with bia, a husband marries a kohen, a husband marries a wife with chuppah, so then she becomes fully married, and she can eat truma, saying it in. So we see that here it's stronger. So for sure, I should say that the kinyan of kesef should be enough that she'd be able to eat truma, even if you didn't have the second stage of chuppah. So the kavachayim still stands. So when it comes to bia, the Braise was talking about bia with chuppah, and when it comes to kesef, it was speaking about kesef without chuppah. And then Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira added, as the Gemara brought before, Avul ma esed, this is all minat Torah, but what should I do? Sharei omru chachamim, ein arusa bas Yisrael lecheles betrume, that an arusa, a bas Yisrael that's marrying a kohen, will not eat trume, ad shetikanes l'chuppah, until the second stage of marriage, when the husband brings her into his home. And the reason is mishom the Ola. This is because of the gzeira that Ola said, and this was brought on Daf Hey. What's the gzeira of Ola? Since after the first stage of marriage, she still lives in her father's house together with her siblings. If she's going to get truma food from her husband, the kohen, she may share that food together with her siblings. That's the gzeira. The Gemara says, who Ben Bagbag disagreed with this Kal V'chaymer, and he says the reason is because Gabe Shivcha Kananis, when it comes to a Shivcha Kananis, the reason why, if a master acquires a Shivcha Kananis, she eats Trumeh just by Kesef alone, is because Leishayr B'Kinyana. There's nothing remaining in what he's acquiring her for. He's acquiring her to be a Shivcha Kananis. Through Kesef, she becomes a full Kinyan. He owns her guf just through Kesef alone. But Hacha, when it comes to the first stage of marriage in Kidushin Kesef, Shayr B'Kinyana, it's not a full Kinyan yet. We had before in the Amid here, there's certain things that a husband does not own his wife for, legabe the first stage of marriage, the Yerusha, the Tumah, Faras Nadarim. So how could you compare? How could you learn out a Kal V'chaymer from Shivcha Kananis, a Kayan owning a Shivcha Kananis, to a Kayan marrying a Bas Yisrael, if by the Bas Yisrael it's much less of a Kinyan? Okay, that's all one pshat in the Braisa. So according to this pshat, the discussion between Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and Yochanan ben Bagbag was all benigeya to this Bas Yisrael, if she's allowed to eat Trumeh min HaTorah when she marries the Bas Kayin. But now the Gemara brings the second pshat that the whole discussion between them was not benigeya to min HaTorah. Min HaTorah, everybody agrees that she's allowed to eat Trumeh. The whole discussion between them was whether midrabanan she's allowed to eat Trumeh or not. Ravina says, everybody agrees that min HaTorah she could eat Trumeh. That's both for Bia and for Kesef. And the reason is because what's the source that a Bas Yisrael that marries a Kohen could eat Trumeh? The Pasuk says, Kinyan Kaspai, anyone that's owned by the Kohen. So even after the first stage of marriage, she's called Kinyan Kaspai, even if not fully, but it's already, everyone agrees to. That wasn't the discussion here. So therefore, there's no raya. We're all bringing this as a raya, whether Bia creates the second stage of marriage or not. No, even for the first stage of marriage, everybody agrees that min HaTorah you can eat Trumeh. So that's not what's going on over here. Rather, what's the discussion here? The whole discussion here between Yochanan ben Bagbag and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira was regarding her being allowed to eat Trumeh with Rabbanan. This is what he sent to ask Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. I heard that you say that Arusa Bas Yisrael Cheles B'Trumeh, that Arusa Bas Yisrael could eat Trumeh after the first stage of marriage to the Kohen, and you're not concerned of a gzeira that maybe after the second stage of marriage, the husband will discover that his wife has a mum, some kind of a blemish, and therefore and he didn't know about this, and therefore it's going to come out that the whole marriage in the first place was a mistake. It was a toss, and therefore, if she's going to eat truma before the second stage of marriage, it might come out that in the end she was a Bas Yisrael that ate truma, and she's a zara, and she's not allowed to eat this truma. So therefore we wait until the second stage of marriage and the husband will see if she has a mum or not. That's what simpein over here means. Simpein means when there's like something that could be mevatel, the whole sale over here. So that's what he was asking Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. Are you not concerned about this mum being discovered later? Shalach lei, so Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira sent back, Va'ati yato imekain? Are you not in agreement with me about this? You're proficient in the chambers of Torah, and you can dash in the following Kal V'chaymer. So don't you note the following? That when it comes to a Shivcha Kananis, she'ein biyasa machilasa b'trumeh. With Bia, she cannot eat any trumeh. But Kaspa machilasa b'trumeh, when her master acquires her just through Kesef, she can eat trumeh. V'loi chayshinan l'simpein. And we're not concerned, the husband pays for Shivcha Kananis, not the husband, sorry, the Kohen, the master, pays for Shivcha Kananis, and he has no idea if she has any blemish or not. But and right away, she can eat trumah. And we're not concerned that maybe later the Kohen will discover that she has a simpon, that she has some kind of a mum. So zu over here, when it comes to a wife, shebiyasa machilasa b'truma. After bia, she can eat truma, and over there, after bia, which is once they're fully married, so she can eat truma. Over there, there's no issue of simpain. So Rashi over here says, after bia, a person knows, he already inspected, and he knows that his wife does not have any mum, and therefore he's okay. So for sure, enidin shekaspa machilasa b'truma. So the kesef should be enough that she should be able to eat truma v'loy neichish l'simpain. And we're not concerned that maybe the husband will discover a mum. Okay, so the point that you see here in the Gemara is that Yochanan ben Bagbag said that the gzeira, that an arusa to a bas koyin does not eat truma, to a koyin that is, arusa bas Yisrael, to a koyin does not eat truma. What would be the reason? Not because of the point that we said before, because she may come to share the truma with her brothers. There's a different reason. The reason is because maybe the whole Kidushin will be a mistake, because maybe the husband will discover a mum. So this is, this gzeira here, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira did not hold of. But even Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira also finishes off and says, "Avol ma ese sharei amru chachamim arusa bas Yisrael eino echeles betrume." He also agrees to the Gezeira that Chachamim said that an Arusa Bas Yisrael cannot eat Truma when she marries the Kain until she enters in the Chuppah, and the reason is Mishum, the Ula, because of the Gezeira that Ula said, which basically means that both Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and Yochanan ben Bagbag agree that an Arusa Bas Yisrael, when she marries a Kain, cannot eat Truma. And it's a Gezeira midrabbanan. The only question is, what's the reason for the Gezeira? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira held that the reason for the Gezeira is because of what Ula said, that she may share the food with her siblings. And Yochanan ben Bagbag held that the reason is because the whole Kidushin may end up being a mistake, because you may find out that she has a mum. Gemara is soon going to explain what's the practical difference between them if they both anyways agree that she can't eat Truma. Let's just finish off the Indian here. On Ben Bagbag, so now the Gemara explains why Ben Bagbag does not hold that we can learn out from Avodim. Why can't we learn out from an Evet? If an Evet can eat Truma right after the Kayin acquires him, even though there may be a chash that you may discover a mum, so why can't we say the same thing by a wife after Kidushin Kesef? So Ben Bagbag will tell you, Simpaim ba'avadim leslie. This concern that you may discover a mum that will nullify the sale here, we're not concerned for that by an Evet. Why? If there's a mum that's very clear for everyone to see, he has a broken hand or whatever it is. So it's that you see before. Well, we're not concerned that you'll find this later. If there's some kind of a mum that's in a concealed area that you don't see, what difference does it make to the master about this? He's acquiring this slave or this maid for work, so it doesn't make a difference. For a wife, it may make a difference to the husband, and over there we're concerned about that, but not for an Evet. That doesn't make any difference. He doesn't care about this. Now, maybe you would say, Nimtza Ganavai Kuvyustus. Maybe you'll say that he'll find out something about the nature of this Evet, that he's a very wild person, he's a thief, or he's a kidnapper. So, that's your fault, because this is something that is if he's actually a Ganav like this, everybody knows about this, and you should have known about this. So, what else are you going to argue? That he may find out later, and it'll be mevatel the whole sale. List mezuyin. Maybe you'll find out that he's a list mezuyin, that he's someone that also a robber that armed robber. Now this is something more extreme. This is Rashi says the Gemara is saying this separately here because this is something that's less common. So you could say that you didn't know about this, you only found out about this later. That he's someone that the government is looking for him to kill him. So the Gemara says, no, even though this is less common, but nevertheless, there's a rumor about this. If this is actually the case, because it's so uncommon, it's something that people know about. So the point is that Ben Bagbag held that we're not concerned that this is going to be discovered later. Okay, now the Gemara concludes the Inyan. In the Braisa here it said that both Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira and Ben Bagbag agree that a Bas Yisrael married to a Kohen, just Edison, does not eat Truma because of the Gzeira Midrabbanan, but they're just arguing what the Gzeira is. Is the Gzeira because of all that she may share the food with her siblings, or is the Gzeira that the whole sale, the whole marriage that is, may become nullified because you'll discover that a mum. So let's see. Bein Labara, Bein Lamar. Both agree that Lo Yachla, that she does not eat Truma. So my Benaya, what is a practical difference between these two reasons? And says the Gemara, Ike Benaya, the difference will be, one case is Kibel, in a case where the husband says, I accept upon myself, no matter what blemish I'll discover, that I accept it and she'll be married anyway, so we're not concerned he may discover a blemish later. Or masar, in a case where the father already gave over his daughter to be sent to the husband, so the daughter is not anymore in the father's house, where she may share the food of trumah with her siblings. The father gave her over to the shluchim that the husband sent to pick her up, to bring to his house. Or v'halach, halach is a similar thing. The shluchim of the father went with her already to go meet the shluchim of the husband, so she's not anymore together with her siblings. And the Mefarshim add, we're not concerned that she may share the truma with these shluchim themselves that are taking her, because only her siblings, where she's close to, she shares with them the food. But with the shluchim, she's not going to share the food.
You the whole